Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Highland Park, Illinois, April 11th, 2022. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Stolberg. Councilmember Stone. Here. Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Councilmember Holloman.
Here.
Councilmember Littleworth.
Present.
Mayor Rotering.
Here, we have a quorum. Everybody please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the
of the United States of America,
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting held March 14th?
I will approve
As
them.
amended, correct?
Yes, I will approve them as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the vote on the minutes?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littleworth.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye. 7 ayes, no nays. The minutes are approved. May I have a motion to approve the warrant list?
So moved.
Councilmember Holloman has her hand up.
I was just going to ask, do we still need to read that whole script that we were doing when we were remote?
We've
Terms of
published, we've published it in as a front page of the agenda.
So we no longer have to read it.
We don't have to read it out loud unless the mayor desires to. But we've
Awesome.
satisfied our legal obligations.
Awesome.
Thank you. Publicly posted with due process ensured. Thank you. And now I am seeking a motion to approve the warrant list.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on the warrant list? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littleworth.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays. The warrant list is approved. We'll continue on to the report of the mayor. I have no appointments this evening. I have one proclamation this evening. In Highland Park, we are very proud of our strong commitment to sustainability, understanding that as leaders, we have an obligation to steward our natural resources. Tonight, we are proud to recognize Highland Park as a Monarch Way Station, indicative of our longstanding investment into creating natural habitats for pollinators. Of course, I have a proclamation. This is the City of Highland Park mayoral proclamation in support of monarch butterflies. Whereas over the past couple of decades, the migrating population of monarch butterflies has plummeted due to habitat loss and environmental stress from an estimated 1 billion to record low numbers. And whereas the near extermination of milkweed, the only plant on which monarchs lay their eggs, is a prime reason for the alarming decline. We must not delay any longer if we hope to reverse this trend. The iconic monarch's migration route from Mexico to Canada, I might say, along I-65, includes Highland Park, Illinois, and is within our ability and power to take action to help save the monarch butterfly. And whereas we know that one source of hope for monarch survival is that individuals, institutions, and organizations can make a difference by including monarch-friendly native plants, especially milkweed, in their landscapes. And whereas, furthermore, concerned citizens and organizations across the country are joining forces to create monarch way stations to sustain the insects along their annual migration routes. Now, therefore, I, Nancy Rotering, Mayor of the City of Highland Park, County of Lake, State of Illinois, do hereby proclaim that Highland Park is a monarch way station and urge all residents of the community to do their part by planting milkweed, the exclusive food source for monarch larvae, so that every parcel of property in Highland Park may contribute to the survival of the monarch butterfly. And with that, I would like to give our thanks to Assistant Manager, Director of Public Works, Ramesh Canaparetti, City Forester, Ben Miller, the Department of Public Works, and numerous parties and agencies and volunteers for all of their work who are removing invasive species and restoring the landscape with the vibrant native plantings that serve as pollinator habitat. And joining us this evening is Candace Dalrymple, a representative of Habitat Highland Park, who is welcome to share a few words about their work efforts. Welcome, Candace. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mayor Rotering. Thanks for inviting me to speak in support of Highland Park as a monarch way station. I'm a member of two organizations in our town, Go Green Highland Park and the League of Women Voters, Highland Park Highwood. and they have recently agreed to co-sponsor an initiative that we are calling Habitat Highland Park. The initiative supports the Monarch Butterfly Proclamation that you've just made this evening. The National Wildlife Federation sponsors a program known as the Community Wildlife Habitats Program. Residents of towns seeking community certification, emphasis on community certification, acknowledge that they have planted gardens or portions of gardens with native plants that attract and support pollinators. Each registered habitat generates points for certification. In addition to individual registrations, towns seeking certification are required to show that education and outreach activities are underway to increase the numbers of residents who are aware of the benefits of such gardens in preventing water waste and reducing harmful impact of chemicals on our environment. Our town, to achieve this kind of recognition from the National Wildlife, needs to achieve 400 total points for these kinds of activities. We have just initiated our program and have generated a little more than 30% of the points needed to meet our goals. Registration is very easy. After stipulating that a habitat provides food, water, safety, and a place to raise young, these requirements can even be met on apartment balconies, by the way. Participants submit their registrations online along with a modest sign-up fee. The National Wildlife Federation tracks all habitats by zip code, and it provides many resources to help us spread the word about where to find native plants in our area and how to plant pollinator gardens. This friendly and easy to participate program can help all of us increase safe living spaces for pollinators and support the critical role that they play in a healthy biodiverse ecosystem. As a kickoff activity for the Highland Park Community Wildlife Certification effort, Go Green Highland Park and the League of Women Voters are collaborating with other community groups such as the Rotary Club and Highland Park High School to develop a how-to demonstration pollinator garden in a high-traffic public area. We will have more details about this demonstration garden and the planting dates very soon. For modest information, more information, it's modest right now, we will certainly have links on both the Go Green Highland Park site and the League of Women Voters website. Their URLs are gogreenhp.org and lwvhp.org. Thanks again for this opportunity to express support for Highland Park's commitment to monarch butterflies and all other pollinators.
Thank you so much, Candace, and it's a great opportunity for me to share that the city's environmental award was given to Go Green Highland Park last week. So thank you for all of your efforts and everything you're doing to protect the earth, which we all know is borrowed from our children. But thank you very much for all of your efforts. Thank you. One other item of business, the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada has awarded the city with the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the city's fiscal year 2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, the most recently audited report. This is the 37th consecutive year the city has received this award. Government and its management attaining the Certificate of Achievement is a significant accomplishment, as it is the highest form of recognition in government accounting and financial reporting. This designation indicates that the city has met nationally recognized standards for effective annual financial reporting. This includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to read the report. The 2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, along with a wealth of information regarding city's finances, is available on the city website at cityhpil.com/budget. It is a great read, I have to tell you. Congratulations and many thanks to City Manager Gita Newkirk, Finance Director Julie Logan, our department directors, the City Finance Department, and all city employees for their continued hard work maintaining the city's high standard of financial excellence and their commitment to providing transparent and accessible information to the community. Very proud of this achievement. I think Julie is on the Zoom, and just want to say congratulations to all who've been working so hard together. Really very noteworthy. Thank you. Okay, continuing on with our agenda. The next item is business from the council, and this is related to the public library. Gita?
Yes, and I believe Councilmember Stone is going to make the introduction.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm the liaison to the library, taking over and filling the large shoes of Dan Kaufman, who was the liaison to the library for many, many years before I was. And happy to introduce Heidi Smith, who is the executive director, who will give a brief library report.
Wonderful. Welcome, Heidi. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for your time tonight. So we have seen an increase in use of the library since the pandemic has been slowing things down a bit. But I'm happy to report that in our first quarter or year to date of 2022, checkouts are now at 79% of what they had been in 2019, which is a vast improvement from where we were in 2021 at the same time during the year at 58%. So we're really happy to be welcoming folks back into the library using our materials, checking out. We anticipate further recovery and increased use, especially with expanding in-person programming this summer. Speaking of programming, I'd like to highlight a recent program that the library co-hosted. It was on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It was a virtual event that was presented shortly after the war began. The event was presented in partnership with several other local libraries, and nearly 400 people registered. It was a fantastic event. We received a lot of wonderful comments, and we were pleased to be able to support our community with a local expert talking about these current international events. I'd also like to give a shout out to our partners, the Highwood Public Library, the Sister Cities Foundation, Working Together, and Family Service of Lake County, who are coming together with library staff to celebrate Dia del Niño, or Day of the Child, on Saturday, April 30th at 1:30 p.m. This celebration will be a cultural event celebrating children all over the world with a focus on Latin American culture. We want to give a big shout out to North Shore School District 112 for providing buses between the Highwood Public Library and the Highland Park Public Library. So I hope you can join us for that event on April 30th. Lastly, I just want to give an update on the possible expansion of the library building. City and library teams are moving forward together on next steps for the possible expansion project in 2025. The library will issue a request for proposal this spring with the goal to select an architect this summer, and we can get started on this important project. The library is developing a website to keep the community informed and engaged. We'll share that when it is live. The theme is Your Library Reimagined. Further information will be presented at a future City Council meeting. So that is my report. Please let me know if you need any additional information.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Any questions for Heidi? We love the library. Thank you. Andres has a question. Sorry, Council Member Tapia, my apologies.
That's right. I just was curious about the times on the April 30.
April 30th, it begins at 1:30. We're going to go until 3:30 p.m. And then the buses are going to run back and forth during that period.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Looking forward to it. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.
You too. Our next item is business from the public. This is for residents wishing to be heard regarding items not on tonight's agenda. Gita, do we have any input from the public?
Thank you, Mayor. City Hall is open. We have one individual that has joined us in the council chambers, but they do not wish to make any comments or questions for the record. Individuals can email us at cityhp@cityhpil.com. And to date, we have not received any requests to have any comments read on the record. And at this time, I would just open it up to the 17 attendees that have joined us. If you wish to make any comments, please raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you. And I see no hands raised.
Okay, we will continue on then with our scheduled business. Items 1 through 20 have been grouped together for omnibus consideration. And so to that end, I'm seeking a motion to approve items 1 through 20.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on items 1 through 20? Any from the public? Okay, will the clerk please call the vote? Thank you.
Councilmember Tapia?
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Stone?
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman?
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer?
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays, and items 1 through 20 are approved. Councilmember Holloman, is your hand up to comment on something?
No.
Oh, okay. Continuing on with our agenda, under other business, we will be hearing from the city manager on the 2022 major projects Q1 update.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Before we get to the major projects update, just want to remind the public that on April 1st, Governor Pritzker signed a new gubernatorial disaster proclamation extending the statewide declaration through April 30th. Additionally, the governor signed a new executive order to extend previous executive orders. And so with the signing of this new disaster proclamation, public meetings may continue to be held remotely, as we are doing this evening, consistent with state law. Effective May 1, 2022, we are planning to shift back to in-person meetings for all of our boards, commissions, and groups. All elected and appointed officials would be in person, applicants and their contractors would be in person, but we would continue to make this virtual meeting option available to any attendees that wanted to participate or just observe any of our meetings. We are going to continue to monitor the COVID cases in our area as well as throughout the state, and we're in regular communication with Highland Park Hospital, Lake County Health, and the state. And so whenever we shift back to in-person meetings, we will certainly communicate through all of our modalities when that happens, so individuals can make sure to monitor and attend any meetings of interest available to them. Any questions on any of that?
Nope.
Okay. And then on behalf of our staff team and the city, we are pleased to present our first quarter major project update. Major project is defined as a significant initiative that is really outside of the city's day-to-day operation. And so here you'll find notable projects that we don't undertake, not unlike water bill paying, for example, or traffic enforcement. So these are unique initiatives. Generally, they're one time, but they also could be repeating initiatives. But because they have a significant public-facing component, we do include them on our work plan as major initiatives. In terms of best practices, usually general industry practices, organizations should have about 3 to 5 major projects per department. And consistent with Highland Park style, we have 124. So we are overachievers, although I will tell you, all of them are certainly sound. They are specific, they're measurable, they're action-oriented, and they represent the collective interest in terms of major projects that the City Council has deemed important to move forward, that our city staff has identified as important initiatives that should be advanced, and also they reflect our public input, public feedback. They are organized by departments, and highlights are provided in red. So in this first quarter, you can easily see the updates to various projects. We have postponed a few projects, and they're identified in the agenda packet in that report that you can see there. So anything that has been postponed, we're also trying to include the rationale for that postponement and when it is anticipated to advance. At this time, I'd just like to share my screen. So we do encourage the public to review the spreadsheet that's included in the packet, and you can see specifically what each major project is, the department that is taking the lead on that initiative, who the specific staff lead is, and again, the various initiatives that will be undertaken. This dashboard that was compiled by our communications manager, Amanda Civitello, working in cooperation with all of our departments, provides a nice kind of graphic just to give an overview of this first quarter update. So you can see we have 124 major projects. As we take a look at different initiatives that we want to undertake, we make sure that they're all based on the foundation of our 4 priorities. And so here you can see these major projects, the bulk of them pertained to one of our priorities of community vibrancy. You can see the public safety, fiscal stability, and infrastructure investment. But one thing very important to note is I don't want to minimize the work that we are doing in all of these areas. So for example, this year as a city, the City Council has prioritized a number of projects that pertain to our infrastructure investment, and we have $25 million in the budget pertaining to our infrastructure. Again, this blue area of infrastructure investment just pertains to select major projects that are reflected on there. And then these two charts here just show what's completed, what's in progress, pending, ongoing, our regular meetings. So for example, every year we have neighborhood meetings where all the governments get together, and we invite the public to come and talk to either the chief elected official or the chief administrative official from all of the governments serving Highland Park. And so that's an example of an ongoing major project, because they're held throughout the year and each year. And then you can see then the progress of each major project based on the core priorities there. Any questions the council has of anyone on our team?
I don't see any questions.
Okay, and that includes our report.
Thank you. And thank you for the comprehensive ability to sort of see it in a snapshot, a summary of all the various areas in which we are putting time, resources, and our focus on. So thank you. Great support of the 4 pillars that all of our projects need to be sort of focusing in on to recognize our priorities. Thank you. And did you want to report on COVID-19, or is that just on the agenda as an add-on because we are always talking about COVID-19?
Well, that was just the update on the disaster proclamation that was extended in our next steps.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, with that, then I'm seeking a motion to adjourn this city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg. Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotary.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays. We stand adjourned. And with that, I'll now call to order the Committee of the Whole of the City Council of Highland Park, Illinois, April 11th, 2022. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Stolberg. Here. Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Councilmember Holloman.
Here.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Here.
Mayor Rotary.
Here, we have a quorum. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 14th Committee of the Whole meeting?
So moved. Second.
Will the clerk please call the vote to approve the minutes?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Present.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotary.
Aye, 6 ayes, 1 present, and the minutes are approved. Our first item of scheduled business is to talk about the Lake Shore Recycling Systems commercial agreement. Geeta, are you running this, or is Aaron going to be leading?
I will introduce it. And first, I do want to introduce Erin Jason. She is the city's new assistant city manager. We are so pleased that she has joined our exceptional team. She started with us at our last city council meeting on March 14th. So she's been with us about 1 month and really hit the ground running. And so this initiative that we are presenting this evening is a report and recommendation as it pertains to our commercial contract with Lakeshore Recycling System. I'd also like to recognize Josh Connell, who represents Lakeshore, who is with us this evening, and Walter Willis is the Executive Director of the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County. Special thanks to both of these gentlemen for their assistance, and specifically for Walter, who has provided really invaluable guidance as he works with all municipalities, not only in Lake County, but throughout the region. As the council is well aware, on March 14th, they did approve a new residential agreement with Lakeshore. We as a staff have met and we have a comprehensive communication plan, which we have put into motion. We're going to be rolling that out to the public to provide them information about the contract, all the various options and opportunities that are available to them, with specific emphasis about our organics program. So that information is being compiled and the communication has already started. So in the next Highlander, residents will be able to see some of that information. We also have a quarterly waste hauler meeting where we get together with Swalco, Lakeshore. Councilmember Stone joins us as the council liaison. And so we are going to be talking as a team about those two topics, highlights of our agreement, how to better communicate that, enhance our communication with the public, and then specifically about the organics program. And then that communication marketing plan is going to be shared with our sustainability advisory group. We'll get their feedback, and then we'll bring that back to the city council if there's any additional feedback or recommendations that you have. So just wanted to make sure, we spent quite a bit of time at our last meeting just talking about all of that. Wanted to give you an update on that effort. So at this time, Aaron, if you could make sure your camera is on, and then you can share your screen. We do have a PowerPoint that'll guide the presentation this evening. And for the public that have joined us, highlights of our presentation and the proposed agreement is also included in the staff report.
Sorry about that. It restarted me. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see all of your faces finally after all this time. Geeta, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I don't know if you do that for me. Oh, you know what? It'll let me. Here we go.
There we go. Sorry, I just made you co-host.
Okay, can you see that presentation slide?
Sadly, no.
Not yet.
Let me see. Give me just a second.
There we go.
There we
All
go.
right, great. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, how's that?
That's good.
It's not in presentation mode, though. It's the only thing.
It's not. Oh,
No.
it is on my end. It's not showing you presentation there?
Try advancing to the next slide.
No, no luck? Hold on, let me see if I move it to a different monitor.
I think you have to go to the view and then do it as slideshow. Up at the view menu at the top.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Let's see here. Still nothing for you?
No, that's okay. We can still see.
Hold on. Geeta, do you want to?
You know what? Yep. Let's,
Sure.
can you close?
Yep, I closed it.
All right.
There it is.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Great. And I think we can go to the next one. You kind of covered that already, Geeta. So first off, I wanted to talk to you about and clarify who actually we're talking about when we talk about the commercial contract. So who are the commercial users? That is any property identified as commercial, industrial, institutional, or multifamily. The commercial agreement covers refuse, recycling, and organic services, just like the residential program. As of Q4 2021, there are 523 users of the commercial services. 80% of those, or 418 users, participate in recycling services, and 9 participate in the subscription organics program. Thank you. As with the residential program, LRS has been extremely responsive to any issues and worked closely with the city to maintain the level of standards and services outlined in their current contract. The city is confident in continued high-level service and response from LRS moving forward. We did speak with the hospital. They are the largest commercial user, and they have echoed these sentiments and expressed their pleasure in the consistency of service in continuing this contract with LRS. In terms of proposed terms and conditions, LRS is looking for a 5-year term on the contract renewal in line with the residential contract that was approved on March 14th. There's a slight increase over the current contract. However, it is still in line with the best practices and in many categories is a minimal dollar increase. The contract calls for an initial increase of 7.7% for containerized waste only. However, when you look at the whole and include recycling and roll-off services, the estimate for the majority of users will be realizing only an approximate 5.3% overall increase. In subsequent years, there will be an annual increase in fees subject to the CPI of no less than 2% and no more than 5%. The new contract also includes defined charges for extra debris. I want to thank Walter and Swalco for lending us their knowledge in current service pricing structures as well as other local contracts to ensure that Highland Park's commercial users are receiving a fair and accurate pricing scale with this new contract. Also of note, the franchise fee collected by the city under the current contract of approximately $112,000 for 2022, the funds of which go towards sustainability-related initiatives, will continue in the new contract, generating upwards of $112,000 year over year for sustainability-related initiative. In speaking with the hospital, I want to add that they did have some questions regarding the compactor sizes and fees, as well as the annual increase parameters surrounding the CPI. The city will continue to seek their input on services and contract-related items in the future. We think that they are good with moving forward as it is. One thing that would change this year over the previous contract would be the removal of the current rebate for recyclable materials. And that would be to combat the rising costs associated with recycling. The overall recycling service pricing structure depends on positive markets, with LRS bearing the cost when the markets turn negative, as they have been the past several years. The removal of the rebate program will also assist LRS to keep service rates down without lowering services provided to consumers. Additionally, LRS has proposed expanding their free commercial recycling services in the new contract to include once-a-week pickup for a 2 cubic yard container at no cost. Once again, the city thanks Walter and Swalco and Josh and his team at LRS for lending us their expertise when renewing the validity of this request and for putting in on LRS's side putting in that additional free service for recycling. So the next few slides are going to show the pricing structures of current versus proposed, broken down by solid waste hauling and disposal services, recycling, and organics material services. As noted earlier, there are 523.
Aaron, I'm so
Yes.
sorry. Aaron, hang on. Councilmember Littwer has her hand up. If we could just pause for 1 sec. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a quick question. It's only because you were just talking about the rebate, Aaron.
Yes.
Saying that that would not occur right now. What was the previous rebate per year in the last 5 years?
I do not have the exact numbers, unfortunately. I don't know, city manager, if you do or not. But I can tell you how it was structured. So It was structured on a quarterly per ton system. So for all the materials that were collected in that time period, the per ton recycling rebate was calculated based on the value of old corrugated cardboard, computed on a calendar quarter basis, and a payment was due 45 days after the close of the calendar quarter. So the current rates were not enough to sustain that. But we can certainly get that information for you if City Manager Newkirk or I do not have them right now.
Yeah, I would appreciate that because I know that at least with the residential agreement, Councilmember Holloman had a suggestion about going back, and I just want to see if that's relevant at all. And if it's not based on the structure, that's fine. But I'd like that information in order to make that decision. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Councilmember Stone has her hand up as well.
Thank you. I just want to get a little bit more clarity because I think there's two separate payments. There's the franchise fee, and then the rebate that you're talking about is related to the sale of the recyclable materials that are collected. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And that recyclable materials payment varies based on the market cost of those materials. So it's not a set amount, right? Okay. Thank you.
And Councilmember Holloman has a question.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's not the same thing as what we had talked about getting back from the on the other agreement. So this is an entirely different treatment for recyclables because there's just no market for it right now.
Thank you. Okay, Aaron, now you're good to go.
Okay, let's talk about solid waste hauling and disposal service fees. So as noted earlier, there are currently 523 users for the commercial waste hauling. Users are able to choose from a variety of container size options, as you can see here, and may arrange for pickup once a week up to daily. So there's really a lot of options for the commercial users to suit their needs. And you'll see that over the next 2 slides as you move through. And then this contract also includes parameters for roll-offs. So if you just need a temporary roll-off, that is also included in this contract. I don't know if you want me, Mayor, if you wanted to go to Councilmember Holloman or for me to continue.
I think she may have left her hand up by mistake.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just caught it out of the corner of my eye.
Right.
Moving on to recycling services then. Recycling services also come with a variety of container size options and service frequency, again, from once a week up to daily collections. There are also multiple free recycling options for once or twice a week pickup, including the newly proposed fee of 2 cubic yard containers for once a week pickup, formerly $25 per week. Important to note, unlike the conversation we had just a few weeks ago about residential services, the twice per week service isn't as costly an issue with commercial services, as LRS has routes in Highland Park each and every day, covering the same areas. Dumpster space for commercial users is also an issue that is solved with more frequent service. So that's just something, I know there were some questions about why it's a little bit different in the commercial versus residential. And again, you see all the different rates from one time a week times up to 7. And again, there's parameters for roll-off recycling services included in the contract.
Councilmember Stone has a question.
Thank you. I just want to ask one quick question. The prices noted here, are these the prices per week or per month?
Right.
On the residential contract, we were looking at the monthly prices, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, these are the monthly prices for weekly service.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
It's so complicated because there's so many different options here. It makes our residential contract look easy.
Right.
Yes, there's definitely a lot of options for commercial users.
And then the compactor prices, those include the rental of the compacting device. Is that right?
So if you go to the next slide, I think it might be even the next one. I don't know if it's on this one or, oh no, nope. I guess it was just under the other. The compactor for this, I'll have to confirm that includes the price, but I believe it includes the price for the recycling, not for the refuse. So the refuse you can lease or pay separately, as you saw on that slide, but for commercial, I will confirm that for you, but I believe it is included.
Okay. Well, Josh is on. Josh, can you confirm that?
We do have separate compactor rental pricing.
Can you go back one slide? Because I was looking at the prices for the 4 cubic yards versus 4 cubic yards compacted, and the compacted price is much higher.
Councilwoman Stone, if it helps, I've never seen a 4-yard compactor, and we have none in Highland Park.
Well, okay, go then the 8. I don't know why that's on there then. And then the 8 yard is the same thing. The compacted is higher.
Yeah, no 8-yard compactors in Highland Park either, and that is a very odd commercial compactor. I have seen one in my career, but for whatever reason, we had that pricing back at the original contract. This came over from the old contract with Advanced Disposal.
So
but we don't have any 4-yard or 8-yard commercial compactors in Highland Park.
Good evening, everyone. That's just an option so that your businesses have that option if they want it. And the reason why the compactor rate is so much more expensive is you can squish more garbage in there.
Right.
Therefore, you're getting more pounds per cubic yard, and that's why the cost is more. And
they compact at a 3-to-1 ratio generally.
Okay. So Walter, it's important to leave those in even though we don't have them currently in town?
Yeah.
Okay.
You might have a business that would want that. So that's,
okay. Thank you.
Most of these prices don't get used by your businesses. 40% are in the 2 cubic yard service level area. We know where they're at, but you also might have businesses coming in wanting flexibility, so they have it.
Great.
Yeah, that's a good point by Walter. If you look at the matrix, the bulk of the users have the top left corner of that matrix.
Yeah,
that makes it easier to kind of view.
Yeah.
We don't have many people in the bottom right.
So the 65, 95, So most people are in a once a week or twice a week, 65.95 or 1 cubic yard.
Yes. And if you just walk around the central business district, you'll see all the small containers in the alleys, gangways. That's the bulk of the users.
We actually did an analysis with your actual service use when we ran the numbers. So if I recall, 40% of your businesses are in the 2 and 4 yard range once a week.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, Erin.
Okay, so on to organics materials services, and thank you, Walter and Josh, for the assist there. So there are currently 9 commercial subscribers to organic materials. However, organics also has a stickered option. One of the reasons why there is a suggested increase for the sticker program from $245 to $407 is to encourage those who do organics to go into a subscription service. The program also provides for cost breaks for larger container sizes that require less frequent service. And I believe the city manager noted at the beginning of the discussion that commercial organics will be more actively marketed and promoted moving forward, just as the residential organics will be promoted moving forward. And all participants in organics are charged on a per pole as needed basis. And that is everything. The next steps then would be for corporate counsel to draft an agreement for formal council consideration. Hopefully at the April 25th city council meeting, should the contract as proposed meet council approval. Thank you.
So any comments or questions? I know there are just a gazillion variables on all of this, and it may have been clearer with residential. Councilmember Tapia, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just to get educated, when, we had a good sense, at least I had a good sense of what the changes in pricing would mean for residents, because I could relate to that. When you look at these price increases for businesses, how are we feeling about what it's going to mean for them? Are they going to look at this as something substantial or kind of comparable to what we talked about with the residential? That's one question. And the second, I'm just curious to know the rest of the story about the percentage of businesses that do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days a week. How is it broken down? If the majority are in the once a week, how does the rest of it show up?
So I will take the piece on the price increase. The price increase overall is less than what the CPI would be. The CPI in this area would be 6.6% for right now. So this does, even though the containerized services only is at 7.7 to get them up to that initial piece, overall their service is only going to go up 5.3%. As a percentage point, that sounds like a lot. As a dollar over dollar increase, it is very minimal in majority of the most used categories. And I don't know, Walter, you might be the better person to refer to regarding the percentage of the breakdown, if you don't mind fielding that one for me.
I'll just add one other thing, Erin, and then just in addition to that, in terms of taking a look at the CPI, this is also very competitive as we take a look at other municipal contracts as well. So we worked hard and we are appreciative of our partnership with Lakeshore just to make sure that we really have very competitive, fair prices as we take a look at all the different service options that our businesses are pursuing.
Yeah, just to follow up, only 8 of the 50 or so communities in Lake County have a commercial franchise. And it's very difficult to do now. It's a much more complicated process. But, and there's about 30 communities in all of the state of Illinois. So the reason why you've done it and you did it in the past was you saved your business community a significant amount of money. Over 90% of your businesses first saved money when we implemented this. Some significant amounts, 40, 50. Sorry about that. So that's a huge impact that your business community still enjoys. And as far as the breakdown of service, we can get that, I'll get that to Gita and you can get that to your council members. We know exactly, Josh has shared that, that's part of your contract. We know frequency and all that. So sorry about the background noise.
Thank you.
Councilmember Howman, you have your hand up?
Yes, this time I actually do. Just a couple of words of thanks to Gita and the team, because I feel like this is a very comprehensive, spelled out, you like told us what we needed to know, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that we have a franchise, right? Like that is kind of a big deal for our community to have, to be able to benefit from that. Basically, we're bulk pricing their disposal services. And I'm comfortable moving forward with the knowledge that you've also, I appreciate that you reach out to the biggest user, right, the hospital, to make sure that they would be comfortable in line. I feel like that's an important piece of feedback. So based on that and the research that you've presented us and your recommendations, I'm good with this information and moving forward.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Stone.
I just want to echo the thanks that Councilmember Holloman just gave to staff. This is well done, and I'm comfortable with moving forward as well. I just want to make sure that we do stay in touch with the hospital and make sure that they're comfortable with what's decided and that it will work for them, because I know that that was an issue in our last contract where we made some changes because they were previously unable to recycle, and then with the new contract they were able to do so. So just staying in touch with them and making sure we structure this so that it works for them as well would be helpful.
Great, thank you both. Any other comments? Nope. Okay. Everybody good with moving forward with what's been proposed? Thank you for taking a very complex question and simplifying it for us. So we appreciate it greatly. And Walter and Josh, thank you. And Aaron, welcome to the team. Appreciate your hard work on this. Thank you. All right, cheers all. Let's talk about outdoor dining, even though it's still a little chilly. It's coming. And so we want to sit outside and enjoy our community and our great restaurants. Gita, is this you, or it looks like Charmaine and Joel will be providing?
Yes, Mayor, I'll just introduce it, and then I will turn it over to our staff team. One moment. So this next item on the agenda pertains to our outdoor dining program. We have a presentation that we're going to share with you this evening. We are looking for your policy feedback as it pertains to this program, just to make sure that we are moving in line with the policy direction that you so choose. We have, for the last 2 years, we have been offering no-cost permits to our businesses to take advantage of the city's public right-of-way and to really support them during this difficult time with the pandemic. And so we have approved in the last 2 years 67 applications in total. That's been a value of more than $5,000. But again, just very important as we continue to explore a myriad of different ways that we can support our businesses. We offer the use of public right-of-way for not just restaurants, but also for our commercial businesses to have, either planters, or they may have tables out there for curbside pickup, different ways. Really, the focus of this evening is just to focus on that outdoor dining component. And when we talk about public right-of-way, we're talking about the sidewalk and also a portion of the street, the parking spaces in the street. One important note is any business or organization also has an opportunity to pursue a special event permit from the city. And so a special event could be major or minor. An example of a major special event is, for example, the Port Clinton Art Festival. It entails street closures. It's significant review by our staff. It's taking a look at tents and traffic circulation and a number of different parameters. A minor special event may be, someone coordinating a walk, for example, and only using the sidewalk, doesn't require any street closures, but it's something that we likewise ask them to put together a special event permit application so we can review that. So that was still available to businesses. At this time, so I'd like to introduce Joel Fontaine, our Director of Community Development, and Charmaine Laters, our Deputy Director. So they're going to walk us through the PowerPoint. And again, we welcome your feedback.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And Gita, can you allow me to share screen?
Yes, there you go.
Okay. Okay. Does everybody see the outdoor dining intro?
We do. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so Geeta just mentioned, the city manager just mentioned, we issued over the past 2 years, 67 applications and permits related to outdoor dining at no cost. And this is outdoor dining in the public right of way we're talking about tonight. That's the focus of tonight's presentation. So in response to COVID-19, the city has adapted its outdoor dining program to increase dining capacity for restaurants, support expanded carryout services, and establish other allowances to aid businesses, as the city manager mentioned. Some of these include use of the right-of-way for carryout services, outdoor dining seating in the sidewalk extending beyond the frontage of a particular restaurant, and also on-street parking, and also music, live and other, in the right-of-way. The city suspended its $75 application fee for the past 2 years to encourage and support its business community. Just to touch base with the existing code, which we have made modifications that we'll present as proposals going forward that we've been doing during the pandemic and would like the council to consider and work with us to make permanent. In chapter 93, 305, the city manager is authorized to grant a license for outdoor dining areas. And there are several provisions in 93 that kind of give the parameters, if you will, and they include, keeping the area neat and clean, including a temporary barrier, a 5-foot unobstructed path for pedestrians, and seating being limited to the number of tables and chairs that they identify and the manager approves, and that all equipment and improvements be in good condition, liquor licensing as appropriate and allowed per the code, and with conditions the city manager deems necessary to serve the public best. The licensee also is required to hold harmless for any damages or injury claims resulting from the use of the outdoor area in the public right-of-way. So the code captures this ability for the city manager to do this administratively, and what we're talking about now is, so what are we proposing that we've basically been doing but want to continue to do going forward? And so our recommended outdoor dining program includes the same type of administrative review and approval whereby the city manager would issue a license with conditions and exemptions deemed appropriate. A team of staff that includes business development, community development, police, and public works reviews applications and makes comments and advises the city manager before the issuance of any license. The administrative review and approval of these matters does include design, materials, layout, equipment, and other matters related to the outdoor dining elements. The fees, we propose none for FY22, consistent with the past 2 years, and propose to resume the $75 fee that had been charged prior to be resumed in 2023. In addition, we suggest implementing a new fee, a $150 fee for use of the public parking for outdoor dining. And this would have to be incorporated into the annual fee resolution. A little bit of a caveat there. For the outdoor parking being used for outdoor dining, we would say that the limiters would be no greater than their frontage of the business with a maximum of 3 parking spaces. Use of the right-of-way. So we talk here about the extent of the use of the right-of-way and the provision for access. So in terms of extent, we're looking at outdoor dining elements, meaning tables, chairs, and seating and lighting, etc. They may be placed in the public right-of-way provided it doesn't extend beyond the frontage of the business without written approval of tenants of the affected properties. And if those properties happen to be vacant, this would require an approval of the property owner. In terms of access, we do want to maintain adequate access along our pedestrian ways and maintain that 5-foot unobstructed path for pedestrians. In terms of equipment and cleaning and trash, all tables and chairs, must be, and all equipment must be in good visual appearance, and they must be maintained in terms of their orderliness, in terms of how they're set up in the right of way. Cleaning and trash, outdoor dining areas must be kept clean at all times and free of trash, including that the restaurant would need to empty trash containers in the vicinity that are city-owned on a regular basis. And if there's any wind-blown trash, they would need to be responsible and keep that up on an ongoing basis through their ongoing staffing of the outdoor dining service. In terms of hours, dining hours and music hours. So starting with dining hours, outdoor sales and service between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday, except on the issuance of a special use permit, therefore. So to go beyond those would need to have council approval. In terms of music hours, live music, if any, provided it does not include amplification or drums between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Friday, Saturday, or legal holiday. All other music may be permitted, provided it is kept at a background sound level during the hours of outdoor dining sales or service. So that would be by way of a speaker system or other type of outdoor sound projection. Duration. April 1st through December 1st pretty much covers all of our good weather seasons. So if there happens to be snow during those times of year, which can happen, all snow must be promptly removed by the restaurant owner within 48 hours of snowfall. And equipment and furnishings have to be removed promptly before December 1st. And if not, the city could, at its choosing, remove at the applicant's expense. This provides applicants the flexibility needed to catch those precious good days early in the season and late in the season that sometimes surprise us all, and everybody wants to take advantage. So they're really good opportunities for restaurants, and so let's let them take advantage of them. That's the idea behind the pretty broad duration here. In terms of next steps, staff will revise applications and develop code amendments that incorporate council's feedback here tonight, formalize this current practice, including administrative authority to grant exceptions if warranted, and consolidating regulation for ease of reference. We have regulations that pertain to this in various places, and it would be best to organize it in a way so that everyone could have a full sense of confidence that they know all that pertains to outdoor dining in the public right of way. That's all I have, Mayor. I do have some slides on a municipal survey that we did and some other information. We did get responses back from 18 municipalities, and we did a additional survey of 3 others to try to get their responses because they had not responded initially, and we were able to do that as well. So depending on where the conversation goes, we could certainly talk about that as well.
Thanks, Joel. For
welcome.
the moment, if you could stop. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I just,
Sure.
thank you for all of this. Whoops, I'm sorry. People are, get rid of the phone calls of random family members. Okay. So first let me say, huge fan of outdoor dining, appreciate the flexibility and the nimbleness of your team and the city manager's office during the pandemic. You guys did an amazing job with a lot of sort of real demands that I thought were absolutely significant in terms of helping out all of our restaurants. So thank you for all of that. I do have several questions, and I saw your hand was also up, Councilmember Littlewer. I'm happy to call on you in a second. So, you know, I keep thinking of 2 main places that are using sort of our roads. I know others are for carry out and so forth, but pretty much Norton's and Ravinia Brewing are setting up furniture in the right of way. So here, my first question, and I'll just chime in. So how do we address the needs of neighboring businesses and residents? I know it's well and good to say, well, we check with our neighboring residents and we check with our neighboring businesses. I've talked to several, and just in anticipation of this conversation, you know, people don't want to get in trouble with folks that they are geographically next to. But there are some folks who are a little bit more assertive than others. And, you know, I just think we've asked a lot of other businesses, in addition to our restaurants and neighbors of these restaurants. We got to figure out a way to address their needs. It's mainly been taking away parking from neighboring businesses and noise. Those have been the big issues, at least that I've heard of in Ravinia, and then I'm not even going to get into the fight between the two on Sheridan Road. So that's my first question. My next question is, who is enforcing removal of furniture overnight? And who is enforcing the music issues that seem to be coming with regularity? It's not on our police to have to deal with that, and I'm wondering sort of administratively what that's going to look like. My next question is related to ensuring access to people with disabilities, both again to these businesses, neighboring businesses, and just our sidewalks at large. I recognize that we have this agreement that it's a 5-foot width. That's pretty tight. And if you're in a wheelchair trying to get through or have other challenges, I just want to make sure that we're accommodating everybody fairly. My fourth question is related to generators. Who is taking a look at and keeping track of where they're being placed, the pollution that's coming from them, the noise that's coming from them? Again, I heard from folks who said, oh, you know, the generators were placed right outside our door. And we were like, and they're not part of the business. So, you know, people who are kind of given an inch taking a mile, who's enforcing that and who's measuring what that impact is? And then lastly, by golly, I sure remember hours of conversation about Ravinia Brewing and the beer garden and the music. And I mean, we spent, it seems like days figuring out how many times they could have a drummer, how many times they could have amplification. I just want to know, and again, I'm not against anybody doing their business and being vibrant in our community, but they have a beer garden. Why do they now need to use our parking spaces in the front? Or are they no longer using the beer garden? And if so, why? And so those are my 5 questions.
So I can start and then and then feel free to jump in. So thank you, Mayor. Excellent questions. So the first in terms of neighboring businesses, and then let's also add neighboring residents as well, because there are a number of residents that reside in that area. So one, what we do is, we're trying to create a balance of making sure that we are being responsive and trying to improve the quality of life and the vibrancy of our business district, and certainly balancing that with any concerns that we receive. And so these parameters that were introduced this evening really reflect that balance. So for example, last year, one of our applicants had several evenings where there were bands with drums and very amplified music. And so as we took a look at our parameters for moving forward, one thing that we're recommending is no drums, no amplification. And so that's kind of been in response to that. One of our businesses last year did want to expand beyond the frontage of their business. And so we did talk to the neighboring property owner, neighboring business. They had a concern with that, and so we scaled back the entire width of that frontage. Again, trying to support the restaurant, but also trying to be responsive to the concerns of the business. In terms of, you're right, we only have 2 restaurants, Ravinia Brewing and Norton's, that are actually using parking spaces in front of their business. Ravinia Brewing has 3, and then and Norton has, I believe, 2. And so when we take a look at, for example, those 3 businesses, and they did ask for more, but we reduced it down to 3 because we wanted to make sure that there are 2 spaces there that are still curbside pickup temporary parkings, because we know people want to run into these stores, either pick up food or pick up whatever they need to get and then leave. So we wanted to make sure that there's still that. And then we also wanted to make sure further east on Roger Williams, there is that longer, there is on-street parking that's available to them. And then we're also sensitive, and we do share with the public that there is an adjoining parking lot that is available to the public. So we're kind of reviewing all those different parameters. When you ask who is enforcing, our review process is this. So the first application actually goes to our business development office. And we have a standard application that any business is able to complete. We ask for a great deal of information in terms of what they're looking to do, when, specific information. We ask for a site plan. And so where are they going to put the tables, the chairs, anything else that they're having out there? We ask them to include dimensions so we know that they are maintaining access that's sufficient for pedestrians as well as anyone in a wheelchair, walkers, strollers, anything of that nature. And from there, that application is reviewed by a number of different departments. And so we've got community development that's taking a look at all the inspection, safety issues, code issues, and those types of things. Our fire prevention bureau is also part of community development. So they're taking a look at generators and if there's a fire pit, where is it? How is it being used? Where are extension cords, if there are extension cords, making sure that there's no safety or trip hazards. Our police department is taking a look at it from a traffic safety, from all public safety perspective. And then Public Works is taking a look. They're also reviewing the signage. They're reviewing, various aspects. So we have all the departments taking a look at it. And then I review all that information as the city manager and take all the staff feedback and everything, and we make sure then again that we're trying to create that balance to address the request of the business, but do so also being mindful of impact to neighbors, whether or not they've communicated with us. We're always looking out for everybody.
Who's enforcing?
So who is enforcing is, I guess it depends what they're enforcing, but generally it's our community development staff. And so if someone calls public safety dispatch because of a noise complaint, that goes to our police department or our fire department. And so the police department will address it if it's on a Friday night, if it's outside of business hours. If we get a concern and it's something that's not a safety issue, then our inspection staff, which is out of community development, will do those inspections and address it from a code enforcement perspective. We'll also have our business development staff also addressing some issues that are not necessarily inspection purposes, inspection related. So for example, like when we were doing the masks and we were, going through and businesses, their employees weren't wearing masks. It was actually our business development office that was following up with the business owner as it pertains to that. So they have some aspect in terms of the follow-up with the business owner as well.
So at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, if the furniture is coming in, who's enforcing that? That was my understanding, was that the furniture needed to come in at night. It's been on Roger Williams for over a year, so I don't know how that happens. And again, I'm not trying to be difficult. Again, love sitting outside. It's all good. But you got folks who moved over an old post office who now have a restaurant with live music.
Yeah.
So how do we diminish the burden on those people that we've heard from regularly?
Well, and Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, but outdoor dining, they're not bringing in the furniture every night. It's just December, they have to bring it in. They can't have it. So, for example, Little French Guy has tables out there. We will make sure that there's still an access. People can access through there. We'll make sure there's no safety hazards, and we'll make sure that what they set up out there is consistent with the site plan that our staff has reviewed and approved. So at the end of the season is when they have to actually remove everything. So this year, I guess it was, we did grant the authority for Ravinia Brewing to keep their outdoor dining in place. That was a unique circumstance because there was a pipe burst in the winter season, and it would have been very costly to have them undertake that entire cleanup and everything in light of the winter conditions. And so we did make an exception. That is not our intention to allow businesses to keep up their outdoor dining year round. We also required them to to make sure, understanding that we were doing snowplow operations. We didn't want that liability. We did have a concern with snowplow operations adjacent to an outdoor dining area. So we worked specifically with them, but that was atypical. It is not our intention to have outdoor dining in place all year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joel.
No, that's right. And yeah, I mean, Mayor, some of the things were relaxed over the years. I mean, working with the Business Development Office, it was deemed not practical to have people bring in their furniture every night during the season. We don't want it out there during the off season, certainly, but it was seen as not practical. Some do, some don't, in terms of the outdoor equipment and in the right of way.
Understood. And again, I just was, responding to what was presented and kind of curious to know what the cost was going to be to us to have somebody bringing their stuff in and out every day if we were enforcing that. That's all. The bottom line is we want it to be fair.
Right. And agreed. And I would say that we
from.
have not enforced that, uniformly have not enforced that particular aspect based on information from business development about the feasibility to have that be the case for all restaurant owners. And so that has not been. Now, in the proposed program and the program that we've been doing for the last 2 years, which we were seeking feedback, we would continue that. And only when it comes to the end of the season would we say you need to take the furniture away and out of the right of way over the winter months. So December 1st to April 1st, everything's out.
Got it. Okay.
But I do want to stress, we try to get to yes to everyone. We're trying to really work diligently to make sure that we are addressing any concerns and that we're trying to, kind of like Disney, we're trying to make everyone's wishes come true. Now, we can't do that certainly all the time, but we always try to work one-on-one with businesses trying to accomplish what they desire to do. And so we have, for example, Norton's has music inside and they have wanted to do music outside as well. And I think in terms of your last question of why allow a business to do this outside when we've granted approval for them to do it in their rear garden area or courtyard? And that's a very good question. And we did spend a significant amount of time on that special use approval. From a business perspective, there is more vibrancy at their front door. When residents or guests come into our community and they see an outdoor dining component with lights and music, it's welcoming, it's where people want to be. They don't always see that. They don't always see the music that's in Norton's or the music that's behind Ravinia Brewing or what's happening now in Diver, which, was Summer Inn. And so businesses, we're hearing from them if they want to create this nice attraction area and bring people there, and this helps do that.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate their creativity and their thinking outside the box. Again, I'm reflecting back what others may be hesitant to share, who are also businesses in these vicinities, who are frustrated that they feel that they are not being heard and that their needs are not being met. And so the loudest voice is getting the parking spaces and kind of, taking over the area to the detriment of these other businesses. And I think those are the voices that need to be heard as well. Okay. Councilmember Holloman.
Oh, I think,
Oh, are you next? I didn't see your hand up.
it was up before and then.
Oh, and then I talked and talked and talked. Okay, Littleworth, then Holloman. Go ahead.
Sorry, and it doesn't really matter the order.
No worries.
But I just wanted to reflect for a minute because, first of all, I think it's very hard to meet everybody's wishes and balance that with then an overriding general perspective. And I really want to commend staff. It's not an easy task, as you all know. And Mayor, when you said how many hours were spent going over that in the beginning with the brewery, the bottom line is so much of this really was already done. And this is adding on to it in a very, I believe, measured and thoughtful way. The fact that you carved out that there would be like no drums, a different level of music on the front end of things, I think is really a crucial point. And that was really reflected in all the surveys where people said, no drums, no, really loud acoustical type of things. But I do think that the vibrancy and the feeling that you have on the outside in the front is very, very different. So I really appreciate the fact that we're not going back on something that both the PDC and the council really thought through very carefully a couple of years ago. And instead, what we're doing is we're building from that in a very tailored, finesse way. The 2 spaces, the 3 spaces, rather than saying, oh yeah, you can have an entire block of parking area. And I think by limiting it like that, we are taking into account both the residential neighbors, the other business neighbors. I mean, I have to say it's rare that I go whole hog and say, wow, this was a great presentation. But Joel, you hit every bullet on my list in terms of cars, type of music, hours, modeling what has been done through PBC. So I really commend staff on crafting in a very artful way the way of using the right of way so that you have an overarching theory, but you also kind of create little niches. And I don't want to take away from the fact that the bottom line is someone can still apply to the city manager for a bit of a permit that's a little bit different. So for example, if there's an event on Valentine's Day, which is not in that April 1st date, and they want a special permit to have something out front because it's beautiful weather, they can go forward and do that. But the overarching area is April 1st through December 1st. So I just think it's an excellent proposal by staff, and I really support it all the way. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Holloman.
Okay, I'm going to start by echoing Annette because I agree with everything she said. But I first want to back up and say, look, I think what we have to do is we have to start with a thank you to our businesses who have survived the worst 2 years in the history of the restaurant industry. We depend on these restaurants to bring vibrancy, to bring a sense of community to our town. They are truly the backbone of a Highland Park. You don't go to Highland Park on Saturday night to go clothes shopping. You go to go out for dinner. And without these restaurants, we lose a critical element of community vibrancy. I understand vibrancy has a cost, right? We value that vibrancy, but there is a give and take to it. And what this plan represents to me is a weighing of all of those factors and a really good sense of balance of give and take. I think when we look at our businesses, they have found ways to pivot amongst labor shortages, food costs, inflation, COVID. 2 years ago, we actually shut down the entire community and they were not allowed to have everybody in there. They could have gone belly up and out of business. Our staff worked with these businesses who found really creative ways to bring something to the community. And I think we can't forget that. They kept up vibrancy in a time when we desperately needed it. And I think that has to be remembered. People over and over again say, oh, there's nothing going on in Highland Park. Look at Highwood. Well, that's because you see it out front in your face when you drive down the streets. There are people sitting outside, communing outside. People are there and are present, and you cannot underestimate the critical importance of that. I am not concerned at all about taking away a few parking spaces out front. Kim, you'll tell us we drive too much, right? Get rid of a few parking spaces, let people walk, let people park in remote sections. Pretty soon we'll have electric cars that'll just drop us off and it won't matter. But the end is we are giving up very little. And to say that, oh, well, we value parking more than we value an opportunity to be outside and together, I don't think any of us believe that.
I don't think anybody said that. I don't think anybody said that.
Okay, I'm almost done.
Okay.
Not out of the woods. I mean, there have been cries to Congress to help these businesses, right? We are not there yet. It is still tough. And everything we're doing here is just another way that we are supporting what are essentially small businesses in our community. To my mind, there is no downside. If we can't support our businesses with a plan like this, then we are going to have a backlash within our community who's going to throw up their hands and say, we're just not supporting business. So I really hope that we can all come to support what I feel is an excellent plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify, part of what I said was, how do we address the need of neighboring businesses? Because there are other small businesses who have felt that their voices haven't been heard. So today,
Mayor, can I address that? Because those businesses are welcome to address GETA. I'm not sure what we can do if somebody isn't willing to speak up. It's incumbent on every business to go to the city manager, just like every other business, and to make their voice heard. I feel like that is the responsibility. And I don't see that we can hide the community from something because somebody's afraid to say something. You have to speak up.
Maybe I'm not being clear enough. They don't want to piss off their neighbors because they all have to coexist. And they've tried, and I think several of them have contacted Gita, and she's heard them, and we've tried to come to some resolution. So I think it's just, balance obviously is the word. And I, appreciate, like I said when I made my comments, appreciate all the out-of-the-box creativity that's come from our restaurants, and everything that they've done to pivot during these difficult times. Absolutely. Councilmember Stolberg.
Thanks, Mayor. Briefly, to echo Councilperson Littler, I think staff did an exceptional job here, to Joel and Gita and the staff. I remember many a PDC meeting talking about hours of music and 3-piece band, 4-piece band, what's a drum? Right. So, I think that the wonderful thing here is 2.5 years ago, our restaurants were status quo. Everybody was fine. Nobody had the concept of eating outside, dining outside on a Saturday night. And if we can pull something good out of this pandemic for the last couple of years, it's that is a way that people want to enjoy their evenings out, whether it's sitting at a restaurant or the food trucks in Ravinia or the lot that we're going to do. We've learned, I think, to utilize resources and things that are there that we never thought to utilize before that are an absolute value added. I just want to address something, Councilman Holland said. I don't think we're valuing parking over restaurant survival. But I do, I have heard as well, we shouldn't value outdoor space and loss of parking at the detriment of a neighboring restaurant who feels that they're losing opportunities because people can't find somewhere to park. And really, I know the mayor didn't want to mention names. We're really talking about 2 restaurants here in all of Highland Park. And, one of them is the situation in Ravinia. They've been a great neighbor. They put time in the plan commission to work with their outdoor beer garden, to try and appease the neighbors, to keep music in a 2-piece band and a 3-piece band and only so many hours a week. The issue is I am hearing that those are prime parking spots. So I think if we do get complaints, maybe there are opportunities for staff to go to maybe, the vacant laundromat that's next door and find out if they'd be willing to extend some parking. Or if there are some alley parking restrictions nearby that maybe we could relax on Friday and Saturday evenings to give some additional parking if it's not a fire hazard. But what I want to make sure is, and then the issue with Norton's, the 2 spots right out in front of Norton's aren't as big a deal because there's a plethora of parking all over the place. But the issue with Norton's also is, and I'm glad to see staff put it in the proposal, is there was some issue with the neighboring business there. And the argument from Norton's was, well, but they close. They're closed all the time. How is this interfering? So what I'd like to be able to do is make sure that it is a staff and a city decision, not a neighbor versus neighbor decision. Because one neighbor might be more friendly and accommodating. Another neighbor just may say, I don't care and I don't have to care. And that puts the business at a competitive disadvantage because then we're not treating everybody equally. We're leaving it to the neighbors. So Joel, I don't know how we work it in there. I know it ended up working out with Norton's that they got that extra space, but it had to be taken down at night before they were open. But those 5 or 6 tables, in speaking to the owners of Norton's, that was critical. So I think that's important, that really what I'm trying to say is what we do for one, we do for all. And unless there's a major reason or exception, I think it's just fair. And if someone, has an issue or a complaint, they have to speak up and we have to be willing to address it. I love the idea of continuing outdoor dining. I absolutely, I hear it all the time, Councilperson Holloman, why is Highwood, kicking Highland Park's butt? You go through there and everybody's outside and everybody's walking and drinking and having fun. And, we don't want people stumbling down our streets, but we want them, and I'm not saying they stumble down Highwood. I'm sure I'm going to get calls tomorrow. But I just, we want to do everything we can to help, Summer Inn and their new restaurant. There is no better outdoor space anywhere, let alone in Highland Park, and they should be killing it. So I think that's great. I like to see some of the new applications. I saw, Gita, the number of businesses applying for outdoor space, whether it's the same old ones or new ones or bringing back Once Upon a Bagel's few outdoor tables. And I think we should be encouraging other restaurants to utilize that public way, so long as the mayor said it's not interfering with accessibility or people with special needs or things like that. The only other question I had was two. Number one, the music. The enforcement of the music is difficult. I do know that there were some complaints that I got and saying, what can we do with it about the music? I think as long as we have some clear guidelines, that's great. But then the question becomes no different than we've dealt with at Walters Field. You know, how are we going to enforce it? Are we really going to write tickets? Are we going to shut them down? And again, it's not about the restaurant that's enjoying the music. It's about the restaurant across the street that is not, and their patrons are not. And I think that's where the equitability needs to come in. The other question I had for staff, and Joel, I saw that I think it was in year 2023, you were proposing a $150 permit fee for outdoor dining. Can you translate that, please, as to how much revenue that brings into the city? And, you know, we've waived other fees like liquor licenses and other things. If we're trying to help our businesses, you know, $150 may seem like not a lot of money, but for some it is. And what dollars are we really foregoing in the city if we were to say, you know what, we're going to put a hiatus on it for 4 more years or whatever it is, just to continue? And it's not in my mind, everything we're talking about tonight is not just the businesses we have today, but if you look at the reports of what's coming in and the people who are interested in our community, these are things that help attract new restaurants to our community. So it's not just about keeping those here today and letting them, you know, enjoy. It's about being welcoming to others who are comparing Highland Park to Winnetka, to Wilmette, to Lake Forest, and what are we offering these businesses? So I know that fee may seem, you know, a lot cumulatively, but is it really needed? And one more thing to just say, Highland Park charges this and someone else doesn't. I'm just curious how much dollars that really is, Joel.
It's 5,000, you know, based on our, you know, if you look at the last couple of years, and we do expect to have more, but let's just use the last couple of years as an example. So each year, if it's about 34 applications times 150, you're looking at about $5,000.
For comparison, I think, and Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, like Highwood charges.
Yeah, I can bring that up. Sure. So there's something just to make a distinction, as the city manager is pointing out. If I may, Mayor, just make a distinction. Sure. Okay. So there's outdoor dining in the public right of way on the sidewalk, and then outdoor dining in the public right of way in a parking space. The parking spaces are typically charged more money than on the sidewalk. That's what we found. Like Highwood charges a higher rate. I believe it's $500 for the parking space, but then it's $25 for just out on the sidewalk. What we were saying is $75 for an application that's called at the sidewalk, and then $150 if you're using the parking space. And you could use up to 3. So, you know, it would be about $5,000 in revenue. I understand the point Councilman Stolberg is trying to make. You know, that's up to the council what type of revenue you deem significant and what type of incentives you want to provide.
Is it 150 to use up to 3 spaces or 150 per spot?
Total.
Okay.
Total.
Yep.
So whether you use 1 or
up to 3,
the maximum allowed to 3, it's the same 150.
Up to 3. Yep.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Bloomberg.
Thank you. Gita, I had a question. We keep comparing ourselves to Highwood. Do they have this? And the reason I'm asking this is that we're sort of talking about 2 things here. Number one, we're talking about supporting the businesses that we have through the duration of the pandemic. And we're also talking in more general terms about maintaining a level of vibrancy in our downtown, or achieving a level of vibrancy in our downtown that we don't seem to feel we have, and we tend to compare to Highwood. But my understanding is that our fee structure and our tax structure vary significantly from Highwood. How is that?
Overall, in terms of fee structure, I mean,
fees and taxes
As they
would apply to
impact
restaurants and bars.
Bars, are you saying? Or?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I mean, we haven't done, I mean, we could take a look at like, comparison of liquor licenses, because, those are different across municipalities. What we really looked at, the recent survey that we did, was how much are other municipalities charging for outdoor dining permits?
Mhm.
And that's where we found, I mean, Highwood was the highest at 500 an application.
For the public parking spaces, but
For the
25,
public parking, yeah.
but just,
But
just.
prior to the pandemic, was our taxing structure and licensing structure similar to Highwoods, or were the things that
Well,
they were foregoing that we were not?
Yeah, they didn't have a food and beverage tax, and we did, and so there are differences.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the
we
food and
have more
beverage taxes is
infrastructure.
what I was getting at. So, I'm not sure that comparing ourselves to Highwood is necessarily appropriate. Physically, our community is different. The relationship, the structure of our different business districts is different from the strip that Highwood has, and the relationship between businesses and residential areas is not the same in Highwood as it is in the two what I would say main points that we've been talking about in Highland Park tonight. So I'm not sure that's an apt comparison. I do appreciate the desire to support businesses which have struggled, especially restaurants, but all businesses through the pandemic. I like the idea that we are going to limit the amount of frontage that we are going to allow anybody who wants frontage dining to have, just as a matter of what we're going to permit. I think that should end at the property line. One of the issues where we say, well, if an adjacent property owner, a business operator says, well, I really don't care, that's fine if they want to be here and they want to take up spaces in front of my store. Are they saying that because they don't care, or they don't want to make waves and they're very afraid of what that's going to mean to them as a business in Highland Park? Are they going to be held out for that in some way? I'm aware that some businesses have expressed that to me specifically when I said, how do you feel about this restaurant extending out in front of your property? And this is not another restaurant. This is just a daytime business.
Right.
The answer was, I really didn't feel comfortable saying no.
Right.
So where we do have the limitation, it's just going to be in front of your business. I'm much more comfortable with that. That doesn't put a burden on a property owner adjacent, or a business operator adjacent to that restaurant, to have to speak up. It doesn't put a burden on them, and it does provide the restaurant with an opportunity for outside dining. The other thing, which is a small matter, is when we're talking about the number of spaces, it may make a difference in parts of town where a restaurant is in front of diagonal spaces as opposed to parallel parking. I think the cutoff ought to be at the edge of the business as it extends out into the street, and that's it. At least during regular business hours. I think that is important. Perhaps we can treat the evenings when adjacent businesses that are not restaurants may be different. But that's much more comfortable for me. What I think we experienced, and that I want to continue to be cautious about, and why I appreciate what the mayor had to say, while completely agreeing with some of the other comments that have been made, is we don't want to get into a situation with Mission Creek by a given restaurant or a given business that says, oh, outside dining has been great, let's expand it. Let's do this, let's move over here, let's do all these new things and try this out. I want to encourage creativity, but at the same time, there has to be a fairly clear framework in which to work that also protects the interests and rights of surrounding businesses and adjacent property owners. But I think we're headed in the right direction generally.
Thank you. I think we all want it to be fair. We want to support our small businesses, and we appreciate the restaurants, but it needs to be fair. I think that's sort of the bottom line. Councilmember Tapia.
Yes, with the spirit of this, with fellow council members, that we want to foster this type of vibrancy for all the reasons stated. I'd like to add an additional reason that we haven't mentioned here, but it bears mentioning that, we have this major attractor called Ravinia Festival that brings many people into our city. And by extending the hours as the staff is proposing, I think that will be another benefit, because then people that leave Urban Festival will have, you know, a place to go outside to extend the nice night they're having. So I think that's a very smart move. I have a couple of, and I like the fact that we're trying to balance our different stakeholders, and we're doing it by putting limits on the hours, the days of the week, the kind of music. I had a couple just nuances there. I feel that, and I don't know how others feel about this, but I think the 8 p.m. Limit on the weekday for acoustic music is a little bit too early. I would advocate for 9 o'clock. I don't know if there'd be support for that, but I'd like to put that on the table. But the other hours and the other days of the week seem quite good and will generate the kind of vibrancy that we want. I have a question about what 11 p.m. means on a weekday for outdoor dining, meaning, is that clear the table? Is that, ordering food? It's like, what does 11 o'clock mean? Because I think there's room for ambiguity about what that 11 o'clock thing could mean. So I think that needs a little bit of clarity. As far as the permit fee, I don't think the permit fee is that onerous. $75 for the sidewalk or $150 for the parking. And I like the philosophy of charging a fee. It's not like a revenue raising thing. The $5,000 is not material, but I think it's a respect and a recognition that our staff has to put some work and effort to make this happen. So I think there's a little bit of a transaction there without it being onerous to the business, but a recognition of the effort it requires from our staff. As far as the beyond the property line, I heard Gita, I agree with the limit, but I think Gita allows for an exception with if the other businesses agree to it, that it would be okay. So I want to make sure I'm understanding if there is indeed an exception. And speaking of exceptions, I'm assuming, and I think I heard you say this too, while we're saying acoustic music and no trap set, that a permit could be for permission, like on an exception basis, a business could request that and have amplified music for a special event and things like that. So I just want to be clarified that there is room to make a special request on an exception basis. So those are my thoughts on this.
Thank you. Gita, did you want to respond?
Sure, I'm happy to. So in terms of the hours of operation, so again, the outdoor dining recommendation that we have is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Sunday through Thursday and 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. And so basically what that means is dining, sales, or service. So you should no longer be providing service to your customers after those time periods. So really people should be making their way and be done at that time. So that's how we would define that. Mayor, I'm looking for feedback from the council on Councilmember Tapia's request to change that 8 p.m. timeframe. So right now we've got live music would be from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday through Thursday. And there was a request, I believe, to extend that. So do you want to do a polling right now just to see if there's interest in that, or?
Sure. Do people want to extend it to 9 p.m. during the work week?
No. I like that it's in line with the noise ordinance. That makes sense. That's consistent and clear.
Parallel to what our other nuisance rules are around.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine with 8 o'clock.
Okay.
I just want to test that one.
Right, worth asking, always worth asking. Thank you.
The special, in response to the other questions, in terms of exemptions, yes, we are suggesting that the city manager, and I would be, again, coordinating with all of our appropriate staff to be able to grant exemptions to businesses. And so again, we are fair and consistent as we apply all these regulations, but it's just giving us that flexibility to give an accommodation to a business one time something is happening or something unique happens. So we would like that flexibility. And then just to confirm, yes, businesses do still have an opportunity to apply for a special event. So one good example of that is last year, Ravinia Brewing completed a special event permit to have their Infusion Fest. And so this was a number of different special events. They had bands, they had different type of entertainment and activities. Part of our special event regulations does require notification to neighbors. And so that notification was conducted. They're given contact information. They also know to contact us. And it's kind of a one-time special event. So that is definitely allowable.
Thank you. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you. I want to say I appreciate the staff report and that you did the research to determine what was happening in neighboring communities. That information is really helpful. I agree with everybody that we want to support our restaurants and we want to increase vibrancy with outdoor dining. I dined outdoors actually in a neighboring community over the weekend, and it was lovely. I agree with the mayor and with Councilmember Bloomberg that we need to be fair and that we need to balance the needs of the restaurants and the neighbors. My only concern is with the potential for noise from the cleanup of these areas at 10 or 11. I understand that they're not putting away tables and chairs, which is great, but I want to make sure that if they're putting away dishes, which can also be noisy, that's not happening late at night. If we can manage that, I'm comfortable with the staff recommendation. I think the fees are reasonable. I think the hours are good. As I said, being in compliance with the noise ordinance makes sense to me. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Bloomberg.
I just had one question for City Manager Newkirk. You said there is an opportunity for you to make an exception if a business wants to expand. Is that just for special use permits or permanently through the summer?
That would be as part of, we review these applications from an administrative basis. So one example is right now the hours for this outdoor dining starts April 1st. Right. So we have had businesses start contacting us in January and saying, hey, can I get my application in for outdoor dining because I want to do something for Valentine's Day, for example. So being able, if we know it's a nice weekend, for example, allowing them to start earlier, that would be one exemption that we're recommending we'd be able to approve administratively if it makes sense. And
I was asking more in terms of the width of space that they can occupy in the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. And I guess that's where I'm, looking for feedback from the council, because I've heard kind of different things. So some people support the up to three parking spaces, frontage. So for example, let's take Ravinia Brewing, for example, they have 180 feet of frontage. So right now they are expanding beyond their footprint for their outdoor dining. And as we have taken a look at their site plan, we recognize that impacts an adjacent service business. But again, what we've tried to balance is there's 2 parking spaces that are 15-minute curbside pickup. And so for some people that works for them. We've also made sure that there's additional parking spaces in the front to serve, all the other businesses that are there. And then there's that parking lot. So again, we're trying to balance having an outdoor dining venue that's attractive to businesses, but also recognizing that some neighboring business may be concerned because they are now losing parking. So I guess I'm just looking for feedback. Do you want us to still kind of do that balance, or again, just stick to this is the only area that you have because it's right in front of your frontage and that's it?
Well, so it's not just the parking spaces though. Some of these restaurants have been using the sidewalk during the daytime in front of active businesses because the adjacent businesses have been too uncomfortable to voice any opposition or disapproval of that. But they've voiced it to me, at least personally, in a couple of instances.
Me as well.
I'm not comfortable with that.
Right.
I'm just not. I don't want that option at all because.
And the other piece is by limiting them to 15 minutes. So now the very parking in front of these service businesses, their customers still can't use it because they need the full half hour. So you've basically said, here's parking, but you can't use that. It's too much.
I agree.
So, for some people at night, a business that is not open at night may not have an objection to a restaurant expanding at night.
Right.
But I'm not sure how that can be done without an objecting business being identified by the affected business and creating ill will. That's what I don't want to happen.
Right.
Right. We take that burden off of the neighboring businesses. And, they can always approach us and their neighbor and say, hey, if you want to use this space, we're fine with it. Versus the other direction of having to say, no, you can't use this space.
Maybe the nighttime thing is a really good delineation. If those shops are going to be closed anyhow, maybe that's when you should have it open then.
Right, have that option if they want to pursue it. Clear as mud. Adam?
Thanks, Mayor. No, but I think, listen, first of all, this is excellent. Overall, you're not going to please everybody 100% with whatever you do. However, the thing that bothers me is, if you've got one business, let's say you say, okay, you don't have to stick to your footprint, but we're going to limit it to 3 parking spaces. Okay. To me, that's reasonable. That any business across the street or anywhere in any of our areas losing 3 parking spots, I don't think that's going to be the difference between them staying in business and not, or having people come or not. But the issue of the actual tables that are on the public way, we saw that become an issue last year. And we saw that become an issue in a business that has been here for 25 years. And what I don't want to do is, and I said this before, you could have one neighboring business that says, we're closed and I don't care, use the sidewalk all the way up and down the street, add 7 more tables as long as it's cleaned up by the time my shop opens at 7 a.m. Then you have another business that is just obstinate and isn't open and says, I just don't want them in front of my building. And I think that is unfair to put on the business owner versus business owner instead of us making a decision and regulating it as a council. If we control the sidewalk, then the delineating factor should be if the business is closed, then they can use it in front of it. And otherwise, it's unfair and it's pitting neighbor against neighbor.
The other piece too is, so the 15-minute presumably is also to benefit the restaurants. So you've now said to these other businesses, we're not going to put furniture here, but your customers still aren't really going to be able to use these spots. I think we just got to find a way to make it fair.
Maybe we eliminate the 15 minutes because if you're giving outdoor, then what you do is it's got to give and take, Mayor. And if you want the outdoor seating for people who are going to be there and generate revenue and sit and create an ambiance and listen to music, then you also have to be fair to everybody. And if we're taking away 3 spots, the trade-off is there's no pickup. And let's be honest, because we've all done it and we've all seen it. Someone who's going to run in for food, they're going to double park, they're going to put their hazards on for 5 seconds, they're going to run in. I'm not encouraging it, I'm not saying the police won't ticket them, but the idea of parking at some of these places is a premium at certain times. And if we're trying to side and help these businesses by giving permanent use of a parking spot to exacerbate the situation and taking the next adjacent spots and only making them 15 minutes, I think that hurts more than it helps. And by the way, to everyone who said noise cleanup at 11 o'clock, I've been out on a Friday and Saturday night. I've never seen any of these outdoor restaurants jamming at 10:45. 9:30, a quarter to 10, it's a ghost town. So I don't see anyone really worrying about dishes clanging at 11:30. But I like the fact that it's in it so that we have something to fall back on in case a neighbor does complain. But really, Mayor, my biggest thing is I think we need to be uniform to everybody and to say, well, if your neighbor doesn't care, you can use it. And if your neighbor does care, too bad. Because it's not up to the neighbor whose business is closed. We should be making the decision as a council.
I agree.
Mayor, can I just address one comment? So the 15-minute parking is actually more than just restaurants. So dry cleaners love it. There are many businesses that will order, customers will order things from the business. They just want to go in, run in, pick it up and leave. So we've seen it at Ross, we've seen it at Blue Mercury cosmetic stores, at, different places. So just keep in mind that's more than just for restaurants. A new type of sign that we created in the last year is curbside pickup specifically for businesses. And again, this is trying to be responsive to those businesses and only putting that in where it makes sense. So for example, you'll see these signs outside Michael's. Michael's had asked for signs of, hey, I am looking for curbside pickup. I want people to stay in their car. We're going to come to them, give them their food, and then they go. And so that is a new sign with the restaurant in mind to address theirs. But again, you don't see that sign everywhere because it is specific to those restaurants and we don't want to impact other businesses.
Appreciate that. And again, in this specific example that we are looking at, I'm just telling you, right in front of this business where there are a lot of elderly customers, it's a 15-minute limit. They're not going to park there, and the business is feeling the difficulty of their customers not being able to park in front. And I just think if we can eliminate those 15-minute signs, that might help mitigate some of the angst going on over there.
Mayor, aren't most of those 15-minute signs, don't they expire at 7 o'clock at night?
Yeah, so this is a business that's open during the day.
Right. Oh, right.
I
misunderstood.
And the people who need to be there for a half an hour can't park.
Gotcha.
And I don't even know how much business there is for the restaurants at that point.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah. Michelle.
Yeah, I want to talk to the point that Adam was speaking about for a minute, which is that this is a public right of way. And I really don't think that if a service business, which is closed at 5 o'clock, I don't think they have a right to control that sidewalk in front of their business anymore. And we've seen this before where, somebody will complain about somebody, but that business could go out of business the next year. You know what I mean? Like we are the ones, it is a public right of way. And the question to us is, do we want to allow dining in that public right of way? It doesn't matter if you're renting the space next door. If we say, no, you know what? It's up for grabs. Most businesses are not going to want to spread out their operations like that. They just can't. It sounds like a great idea. And then if you talk to somebody who actually works or runs a restaurant, they're like, yeah, no, we are not running people from our kitchen down the street. So I think it's going to be a limited application, but I think giving the city manager the authority to grant, tables that come up and down and are only there during the non-business hours for the adjacent businesses, I think that's the way to eliminate it. It takes the business people out of it. And so I think that's a great compromise. It's going to be very limited applications where we actually see this, right? But it eliminates the business-to-business communication.
Right.
So,
Joel.
And just one other thing on this. In this context, I'm just reminding folks, this isn't like you're granting, a special use permit on private property where it runs with the land and there's certain things, right? This is, you are a license, you're granting a license, and you can make these in such a way that the city manager has the ability to course correct if it doesn't work and say, look, we gave this opportunity, it's not working out, we're going to need you to pull back here. So we're going to work with Corporation Counsel about that as well, so that, licensing is very different than other types of land use permissions, is all I'm trying to remind the council of.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to echo Councilmember Holloman's point of view. I think that the city manager should have the discretion to deal with these particular exceptions. And if it's going to work and it's working, then we should allow it.
Annette?
Okay, couple things. First of all, I agree that I think it is our obligation to give direction and not to have infighting between, neighbors, or a good situation, bad situation, who knows what it's going to be. So I do think we need to take the lead on this and have the parameters set and do that. And I think that's part of what we're in the process of doing. But I also think that there is a time when a business knows what is best in serving it. So if a particular restaurant is really big on the carryout end and they're really begging for that 15-minute sign versus a business saying, I'd like to use that parking spot, my 2 or 3, for additional dining space, and I'm willing to put up a beautiful barrier or something to make it look good, I have to trust the business on that part of it. And so I still think it's a balancing act, and I would really be interested to see, you know, maybe a Norton's views things differently than a Ravinia Brewery from a Viaggio. And I think they know their businesses, and that's where I would defer the individual business. So in terms of what they're requesting, versus sort of the bird's eye view, where I think it's incumbent upon us to set up the structures, whether that's the type of music, the hours, how many spaces, and then divide it out through there. And that would come under then, again, the city manager cutting those few or request, you know, permitting those or not. So that's where I come out on it.
Thank you. Tony?
Very briefly, I'm very comfortable with what Council Member Holloman suggested, which is allowing the city manager that latitude to extend past a business when it is not within that business's regular business hours. I think that could be the limiting factor. Because what I tended to hear from are people in Ravinia who are affected on either side of Ravinia Brewing. Most of those businesses are closed at night when Ravinia Brewing really needs the extra space. I think that's a reasonable trade-off. I would be comfortable with the city manager doing something like that. My concern is when businesses are open and asked, do you really mind if we extend past your storefront?
Right.
That's the problem. But what Council Member Holloman has suggested, I'm totally comfortable with that. I think that's a really great and fair point where the city manager can exercise her authority.
Thank you. Kim?
I agree that it's a good compromise.
Okay. Joel, sounds like your marching orders are set for you. Remove that whole, you know, taking the furniture in every night piece, and I think we're in good shape. And I really appreciate everybody's thoughtful comments on this topic. And yes, you know, we are here to support our small businesses, to do it in a fair and even-handed way. And we do appreciate everything that our restaurants have done during these difficult times. So,
Thank you,
anything
Mayor.
else?
Thank you,
Thank you. Lots of work gone into this. Much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, I think that's it for Committee of the Whole. Gita, anything else you want to talk about while we're all together?
Nothing further, Mayor.
All righty then. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Ashley is back. Will you please call the roll on that vote?
Councilmember Tapia?
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg?
I'd like to stay a little while. No, I'm just kidding.
Some of us go by the hour.
Sorry, Steve.
Councilmember Stone?
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman?
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer?
Aye.
Mayor Rotering?
Aye. 7 ayes, no nays. We stand adjourned.
Night, everybody.
Have wonderful
everybody.
Passover and Easter if you celebrate.